A Russian missile exploded just 300 yards from a nuclear power plant in southern Ukraine Monday, hundreds of miles from the front lines. The plant is in the Mykolaiv province. It is the second largest in Ukraine after the Zaporizhia power plant. That site has also come under fire. And international inspectors are there to monitor its safety. These strikes renew fears that the nearby shelling could unleash a nuclear disaster. Margaret Kosal joins me now. She is a former senior scholar to the Modern War Institute at West Point and a senior advisor to the U.S. Army Chief of Staff. Now she's a professor at Georgia Tech. Margaret, a Russian missile hit 300 yards from one Ukrainian plant a few days ago. What would happen if a plant was actually hit?
So, first of all, thank you for this opportunity. In many ways, a missile impacting 300 yards is more concerning than a missile directly impacting the plant. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but the nuclear power plants themselves, the vessels where the nuclear fuel rods are, those tend to be insulated. Those are behind concrete barriers of a variety of different sorts, some that are very intentional. It often is these things that might impact the support systems, like the access to electricity, the access to cooling water, that are potentially much more concerning.
And is that the case, that they're more concerning because they would initiate some kind of, and pardon if I'm using this term wrong, meltdown or other catastrophic failure that would actually be more powerful if it came through a failure rather than a direct hit?
That's a great question. I mean, so first off, anytime there is armed conflict near a nuclear power plant, that is something to be of concern. Now, it's not hair-raising catastrophe, oh my God, apocalypse concern. But what it is in particular with nuclear power plants, you can't just flip a switch and turn them off. They need to be cooled down, as you mentioned. Now, there's a range of possible bad things that can happen. Modern nuclear power plants, like the ones in Ukraine, are not going to have the same kind of result as Chernobyl or a meltdown. They're constructed differently, and more importantly, you've got different set of oversight and regulations than was during the Soviet time. Nonetheless, yes, there is a concern that it will not be properly shut down if that's what is to happen. The other piece is a concern with regard to the individuals who are running the plants, particularly the Zaporizhia power plant. One can only imagine with horror what it's been like for these people to be there, being forced to stay and continuing to work, and then additionally having shelling around them. So you've already got a situation where people are on edge as one is experiencing incoming missile fire. That's probably just going to make you more uncomfortable, right, and more prone to accidents. To
mistakes. Yes. Margaret, you've anticipated my next two questions, so I have just a final one for you, which is what can be done to harden these targets, knowing that Russians are winging missiles into the neighborhood?
In many cases, they have already been hardened. In the case of American nuclear power plants, well before 9/11, there was an effort to ensure that they could withstand the impact from a 747. Now, I can't speak to Ukrainian power plants, but again, the nuclear power plants, the fuel rods themselves, those areas are physically hardened. Really, in some ways, the much more difficult issues are the ones that are surrounding the people, and then the really hard challenge is the geopolitics, and how do we deal with that?
Indeed. Margaret Kosal, appreciate it. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.